What's going on, everyone? Juicebags here, and welcome back to the channel for some more Dungeon Defenders 2. We are here on Chaos 10, the Forest Biome, and we are on the Forest Biome for one particular reason, and that is, oh man, does this map have some long lanes. And we are going to be taking advantage of the crazy range that is available using the Hailstorm Tower from the Adept. Now, this little pebble slinger is without a doubt an absolute beast. It is real situational where you're going to want to be able to use this one. It is never going to be best in slot as far as what tower to use on a map. However, if you like the Adept, she is just a little angel, and you enjoy the pebble shooter, then you will no doubt be able to get it done. Now, first things first, let's go ahead and build out some walls. We're going to be using our trusty werewolf here, and we'll get things all dialed in. And we have our walls all placed. I went with the usual setup. I've got 2 werewolves here, 1 there, 2 there, and then 1 over there. And as you see, this leaves us a whopping 850 DU left. So with that in mind, we're going to be able to spend, 200 on each lane and then an extra 50 maybe in the boss lane. Let's take a look and see what we can do with that. Now, the thing with the Hailstorm Tower, first off, it's had many changes over the years. It went from being an anti-air defense to being an air and ground defense. It actually got changes while it was in its anti-air phase. It does do good damage, but it is a single target defense that you have to use a shard to get any AoE out of it. Now, with that in mind, the AoE you do get out of that shard is not wonderful. So let's go ahead and see what we can do to build this one out. This lane is generally a little bit easier, so let's just go with 2 hailstorms here. Now, the Hailstorm, since we're using it as our main defense, we are going to need Piercer Servo. It does shoot projectiles. We're going to need to be able to get through those geodes and those shields. And for the combination here, I'm using Mass Destruction, and Deadly Strikes. Now, in the era of range pylons and diffusion, you don't really need to use Deadly Strikes, and you can go with any third shard in that slot to add a little AoE, a little bit more power. However, you do just get absolutely ridiculous range out of this thing if you do throw Deadly Strikes into the mix. So we're going to go ahead and give it a boost aura. We're going to give it a range pylon and destructive pylon, and then we're going to give it a diffusion buff beam and go with something like that. Now, this lane is generally a little bit heavier, so I went a little light on that lane so I could go a little touch heavier on this one. And here we're going to go with 3 Hailstorm Towers. This is another one where the model of the tower itself does not allow us to get it really closely placed. However, we can get more than sufficient placement there to get them inside of a buff beam. And then we'll kind of just go across like that to get all of those hit. And then we can come on over to this lane. This is another kind of lighter lane, so we're going to go ahead and just go to here as well to save as much DU as possible for the main lane. Now, I haven't built this one out in advance, so I'm not sure how the DU is going to work out. We may need to make some tweaks here. We've got 270 left, so we can go with 3 more hailstorms here, and wait till you see the range on these things once we get our pylons down. So, crazy, absolutely crazy the range these get. They go up to a range cap of 6,000 units, which is pretty high for any ground defense. That actually leaves us 50. We can go 4 on this lane. Which will be good since it is a boss lane. Let's just go 2 and 2, actually. So let's go something like, we'll go 2 like that, and then 2, say, like that, and then we'll get our buff beam down through that stuff. And yeah, anyway, back to the range. You see these things once they're capped out. Actually, I think it might go up to 8,000 range units. I'm actually too far away from that range pylon in this current configuration, so we're going to have to change it up yet again. So we'll start way over this side and we'll try to go 4 across if we can fit them. Now, that footprint does not allow for super, super close placement. Let's see. Gonna have to get this as close as possible here. See if we're able to fit them in. We may not. Yeah, I think we'll get it all in there. Now, if we take a look at it now, yeah, 8,000 range units. So I was wrong with that 6,000, but when you look at the coverage of 8,000 range units, that's a crazy amount. It's going way, way up to the spawn. Let's actually come up here and see if we can get a better look at it. We're out of range of them. No, there we go. So, of course, we get the billboards in the mix. But the range on these things is absolutely insane. It just really, really goes out there. Now, this is a single target defense. With that in mind, anytime you've got a congested lane or a lane with a lot of enemies, you're just going to get beat up. The lane is going to get overwhelmed. So adding in that little bit of AoE you get can definitely help you out there. However, we're going to rely on burning the enemies quick. So let's go ahead and check it out. See how it goes in wave number 1. And you see the range. I mean, it's pelting them from way, way out there. So although it can get overwhelmed, you will just have a ridiculous amount of range and be able to hit these enemies from way, way out. Now, it doesn't take many enemies to get these guys overwhelmed at all. So you're going to need some decent walls that can repair through damage without a doubt in Chaos 10. The Chieftain are just going to make things miserable for you. They're actually doing pretty good so far, though. I will want to keep an eye on that middle lane and make sure it's not getting overrun. But they're doing fairly decent, really. The kobolds are making it all the way down. You see our wolves have taken no damage quite yet, though. This is another example of the walls plus anything else. I mean, as I mentioned, this is just not a best-in-slot tower. It is not optimally used, really, on any maps for the most part. However, with a healthy wall, you're going to be able to get the job done in Chaos 10 with a proper build. Now, obviously, I'm just sitting here chillaxing it out. So if you don't have 10 out of 10 mods, or you don't have all the shards you need, well, I mean, if you don't have all the shards you need, you really need to go get that done before you are jumping into Chaos 10. But if you don't have 10 out of 10 mods, don't sweat it. It doesn't mean you can't do it. It means you're going to have to help. So with a little bit of added DPS in the lane from your hero, you no doubt will still get the win. Now, as we see, it burned everything out. It actually did better than I expected, to be honest. I expected it to get completely overwhelmed with a massive amount of buildup at the walls, but we didn't have that effect. We didn't have that effect at all. So good stuff. So let's go ahead and throw one upgrade on each of these, and then we'll dump anything that's left over over at the main boss lane here. A couple of upgrades there. A couple of upgrades here. Of course, in the final wave, we'll get a boss on this lane as well. So we'll want to keep an eye on that. This, of course, is not Siege Roller or Drakenlord friendly. However, it is friendly in most situations, really. It does decent. It does decent. Now, like I said, it's definitely not optimal, but it is doable. Let's check it out after we get a few upgrades in. Once again, just pelting those enemies from way, way back. Absolutely way, way back. The Chieftain are having to pop their bubble way up the lane, but the problem is the lane congestion. So if there's something, if they can start shooting the Chieftain right at spawn, it's going to be GG's. But if there is a Zerker or something like that that's soaking up all the attention of the tower as the enemies come down, that is where you're going to run into some issues. So we are getting a little bit of a build-up at the wall. However, nothing really terrible. Nothing really terrible. As soon as that werewolf gets unfrozen, it will be able to get its health right back. As you see, it is healing up just wonderfully there and getting the job done. Now, the benefit, of course, you have with the werewolves is they've got that ranged attack, so they can still heal themselves even with nothing right on top of them through the automation shard. It's clearing it out, but there is definitely enemies coming to the walls. The werewolves are back to full, of course, but when those frost orcs freeze it up, that is where the werewolves will take a little bit of damage. Let's see what we got going on over here. We got a nice big push over here. We're going to definitely want to get some more upgrades in. And we got a Slakelion all by himself over here with just a couple of flyers. So this Slakelion is going to get absolutely annihilated, just beasted on. You see just the steady burn down. So pretty good look at the first couple of waves, but let's see what happens once we get through to wave 5 and we get these bad boys fully upped. And here we go into wave number 5. I don't think I'm going to have enough mana to get everything fully upped. No, not quite. Now, a couple of things I forgot to mention. First off, the Hailstorm Tower does not require a 10 out of 10 rate mod. You're actually going to get to the speed cap on this one quite a bit lower. A 6 out of 10 rate mod should get you there to the cap. The Hailstorm Towers are going to fire every 0.24 seconds, so 4 times per second. But if we take a look at it, even with no mod on it at all, let's go ahead and check that out. With no mod on it whatsoever, we take a peek, it's still at 0.32. So you don't need the full 10 out of 10 experience to be able to get this to an effective state. Now, with that same thing in mind, when I say effective state, I mentioned it a couple of times throughout this video, these are just not optimal to use. It's just no chance. So with that in mind, if you use the Hailstorm Tower, you're using it because you can when you are, when you're properly sharded and modded. However, it is never, in my opinion anyway, going to be considered good. Let's go ahead and check it out and watch it fly here as we get through the end of this lane. You see, it's got the single target damage. The problem with the Hailstorm really comes down to getting overwhelmed. It's a 40 DU defense, so you can't stack, you can put a bunch of them down, but you can't stack a million of them, particularly if you're planning on buffing and boosting. You've got 100 DU wrapped up into buffs if you're using a buff beam, a boost aura, and a destructive pylon. So if you're wanting to maximize the power per tower, you're just not going to be able to throw a lot of them down. They are able to get through these things. Of course, we're getting a little bit of the big werewolf carry right here on this one. So it's a little sketch. I mean, they are usable, no doubt. But you're using them more just to show that you can more than anything else. If you're a fan of the Adept, you've got the Flame Burst Tower, and you've got the Tesla Tower, and you've got the Crystal Hammer, which will all outclass the Hailstorm Tower per DU spent. There's just no doubt about it. The Ogre would have died. I think Habit got me to shoot him there. Obviously with this setup, the werewolves are just going to be some absolute killing machines. So, yeah, I mean, if you like the Hailstorm Tower, you can use it, but you would be using it because you want to, not because you think it's the best thing to use, without a doubt. Now, it's not so much the square peg round hole situation, but it's pretty darn close. Pretty darn close. With the single target and those locking on to one enemy, it doesn't take many mobs to get overwhelmed. You see here they were on that cyborg, and then that allowed the berserkers and the chieftain just to march right on down the lane without taking any damage. Now, of course, I'm not giving it the AoE that you get from that shard, but I wanted to kind of show off the ridiculous range that the Hailstorm has, as the range is the best thing this particular defense has going for it, in my personal opinion. And we are down to the last few mobs, just about there. Hex throwers, no problem. Their range is not an issue when you've got the Hailstorm Tower. But there we go, y'all. That one was requested from stream chat over the weekend. If you'd like to see a particular defense in action in Chaos 10, make sure to let me know down in the comments below. But that will do it for this time around. So thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Take it easy.